This is an Aramaic word, remaining in the Greek text. Aramaic was the common language of Jesus, the disciples, and the people of Galilee. For them, the word Ephphatha meant be opened. There are not many words of Aramaic preserved in the Greek New Testament, only a few in the Gospels of Matthew and Mark. The Gospel of Mark is written in rough Greek, obviously by someone who spoke and thought in Aramaic. It has been suggested that the Gospel of Mark kept 4 Aramaic phrases because it was too difficult to translate a full meaning into Greek. The argument is a little weak. Perhaps the words were kept as eyewitness accounts of words heard by Jesus. Their inclusion verifies the events to be true. The words spoken deeply moved the hearers such that they remembered and passed them along as they passed on the gospel story. Or maybe something entirely different is to draw our attention. The 3 other times that Aramaic words are used in Mark are interesting. Jesus says to a dead girl, Talitha cum, little girl, get up. And the little girl begins to breathe. The Aramaic words are the climax of raising a child from the dead. Jesus uses the word Abba while praying that last night in the Garden of Gethsemane. The Aramaic word being a familial address, a heartfelt prayer and conversation to Daddy or Papa. As Jesus cries from the cross, he cries in Aramaic, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? These Aramaic words are familiar phrases for the people. From Psalm 22, for Jesus, a hymn that he had memorized. On all of these occasions, Aramaic words are spoken from a depth of emotion beyond human comprehension. The words are breathy, sighing words. Words that come from a place of physical inadequacy and a spiritual longing. From the depths of contemplation with a desire to understand mystery and to express a deep-seated compassion. Ephphatha. 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 This is an important word, one we are to pay attention to. It is a word that comes at a climax of a building story. At the beginning of the story, Jesus is intentionally traveling to Gentile territory. It seems that Jesus is taking a break from God's chosen people. Jesus is going somewhere where no one will ask him to interpret the law or pose impossible questions for him to answer. Jesus is going somewhere where no one wonders if he is the Messiah, and where no one comes looking for signs or wonders in the form of a miracle. Jesus, for the moment, has closed up shop. He is closed for business. While Jesus is closed for business, word still gets around. His words and deeds seem to precede him. He encounters people who are open and seeking the God of word and compassion. An outsider, that is, a woman from outside the land of Israel, from outside the law of Moses, from a people who are an ancient enemy of Israel, comes to Jesus demanding him to be open for business. She's an outsider to Jesus' frame of reference. She is an unaccompanied female who dares to talk to a stranger and asks that he might heal the daughter of an unclean spirit. Jesus is closed for business. One knows this by the response that he gives to the woman. Face to face, he calls her a dog. Jesus is not open to offering word or compassion to this outsider. After the woman's perseverance and wit persists, Jesus reluctantly grants her request. Jesus turns and leaves the scene. When he does, he is still closed for business. Jesus continues to journey into Gentile territory, into the Decapolis. Despite the interruption, Jesus is still closed. And once again, Jesus encounters an outsider seeking healing and wholeness. This time, the outsider is a Gentile man who has been cut off from society because he's deaf and mute. He has difficulty in communicating with those around him. At the height of the healing, after spitting and touching the man's ears, Jesus says, Ephphatha. Jesus says the word aloud to a man who can't hear the word. Remember, the man is deaf. So who is this word spoken for? Ephphatha, at the climax of the story, is the hinge, the whole point. Could the word have been spoken for Jesus' sake? Ephphatha, be open. Be open to this outsider, to the woman, to the enemy, to the unclean, to the non-Jew. In that moment, when the word passes Jesus' lips, in the sighing of that word, did something break inside of Jesus' very being? Was something way down in the depths of his spirit changed by the utterance of the word? Within the heart of Jesus, a place opened from whence compassion and mercy came. The compassion drowned the judgment he had made of the outsider, and mercy trumped his preconceived notions and understandings of his mission in the world. Compassion and mercy were for all people, no matter how much of an outsider they seemed to be. To fulfill the law, to love God and neighbor, Jesus had to hear and had to experience the command, Ephphatha, be open. This Aramaic word remains in the text because eyewitnesses saw that it was an occasion of great death for Jesus. The spoken word was for Jesus, so that Jesus' ministry would move forward, working from the depths of his being. Jesus was now open for business. Jesus now journeys towards the cross, where compassion and mercy will be freely offered for all. The prophet Isaiah says, he calls us, say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, do not fear. Here is God. God will come with vengeance and recompense. God will come and God will save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened, the ears of the deaf unstopped, the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless will sing for joy. A fearful heart. Was this what Jesus experienced when he first encountered the outsiders in our story? Is a fearful heart one that is closed for business? Jesus was unprepared to offer compassion and mercy as he had not yet contemplated God's response. The Isaiah passage reminds the hearer that God is here, that God will come and save. It also says that God will come with vengeance and recompense. This response of God's is to be understood as a response, not of smiting, but rather of restorative justice. And as restorative justice is applied, hearts are burst open. People are set free. Eyes of the blind see, the ears of the deaf are unstopped, the lame walk, the mute sing. When hearts are open, eyes see beyond bias and judgment. Ears listen for the cry of the outsider, and feet leap to offer compassion. When hearts are open, there is healing and wholeness for all. The Hebrew word from which Ephphatha comes is a word translated to open wide, to loosen, to begin, to plow, to carve. It can mean to let go free, to break forth, to engrave, to lose self. The word holds within it a sense that opening is only the beginning. When open, one's heart can be plowed, to learn new things, to be seeded with knowledge and new ideas. To be open is to have one's heart engraved with compassion and with mercy. In the meeting and loving of one another, particularly those who we see as outsiders. To be open is to lose oneself, to not be afraid, which means to freely act and seek encounters with others. Jesus needed the word Ephphatha to slip through his lips, to open himself as a conduit for compassion and mercy of God, which opens the ears of the deaf man. Jesus needed to hear, to say the word, to open himself for those whom he considered outsiders. It's interesting to ponder that perhaps Jesus experienced, as Isaiah called it, a fearful heart. Was Jesus afraid to share the message beyond his people? Was Jesus afraid that if word got out, he would be unwanted by his own and overwhelmed by Gentile peoples? Did Jesus fear not having enough power or stamina or compassion? Did Jesus have doubts about himself, wonder how big his ministry was to be, and worry about what others might think? Whatever the fear was dissipated with the word Ephphatha. Could it be that this Aramaic word was preserved in the Greek text as a way for us to dissipate our fears, so that we would be open to offer compassion and mercy to the outsider, that is, whomever we see to be an outsider? And all we need to do is follow Jesus' example, and with a sigh, that is, with deep breaths, to say the word as a prayer, as a command, and we will lose self, to be overwhelmed with compassion and with mercy, to be liberated by God's grace, to be neighbor. May this be so. Ephphatha.